The envelope had no return address, just my name, printed in perfect block letters like it was stamped by someone who never learned cursive. The last time I heard the words Camp 13, I was 17 and covered in someone else's blood. It sat on the kitchen table like it belonged there. No sound when it arrived. No knock, no mailman, no sliding of paper through the door slot. Just there, waiting for me, like it had always been there, and I'd only just noticed. I stared at it for a long time. There was something wrong with the paper. It wasn't smooth. It had that fibrous texture, like old pulpy cardstock, the kind used in government files no one's meant to see. It even smelled off, a mix of mold and something I couldn't place at first until it hit me. Cedar wood and lake water. My breath caught. I opened it with a knife, careful not to tear it. Some part of me still afraid that any wrong move would set something in motion. Inside was a photo. One photo. My cabin. From Camp 13, Cabin 6. With the warped steps that creaked in the middle, even when no one was standing on them. With the busted window I once climbed through on a dare. And above the door, still nailed crookedly into the wood, the twin moose antlers. It hadn't changed. Only this photo wasn't from the 90s. There were water droplets on the porch, fresh. The moss along the roofline was thick, wet and green. The door was ajar, but no one visible in the frame, unless you counted the darkness inside. But what froze my spine was the sentence scrawled in red ink across the bottom of the photograph, just beneath the cabin. Come back. They remember. I sat down without meaning to. 1 second I was standing, and the next my knees gave out and the chair caught me. The paper in my hand crinkled as I gripped it tighter, trying to keep it still, trying to keep myself still. My brain kept making this awful, involuntary loop, running the words they remember through every single face I had tried to forget. Faces from that summer, campers who screamed too late, the boy by the lake, the counselor who told us to run but didn't follow, and the blood. God, the blood. I told myself I wasn't going to call her. I said that out loud 3 times, like that might make it true. But my phone was already in my hand, fingers trembling over the screen. I didn't even know if her number was still active. It rang. Once, twice, a 3rd time. Sienna. Silence, a breath. Then her voice, small, low. You got one too. I closed my eyes. What did yours say? You never said goodbye. We didn't speak for a long time, just the quiet sound of shared memory. The kind that doesn't fade, just waits, buried deep, until something digs it back up. You okay? I asked. She laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Not really. You? No. Another long pause. We should meet, I said. I was hoping you'd say that. We chose the gas station on Route 8, near the split that used to lead to the camp road before it was supposedly decommissioned. It felt neutral, familiar but detached, far enough from the woods not to feel like prey. I got there first. The lights buzzed overhead in that way fluorescent lights do when you're already on edge, flickering just enough to make your skin itch. I watched the woods across the lot, drumming my fingers against the steering wheel, heart pounding without reason. When Sienna's car pulled up, I expected some kind of comfort, recognition, nostalgia, maybe. But what stepped out of that driver's seat wasn't the girl I remembered. She moved like she was trying not to fall apart. Her shoulders were hunched up near her ears, and her eyes darted across the parking lot like something might follow her in. Her hair was shorter, darker, a slash of gray at the roots. She'd lost weight, but her face was sharp now, like something had carved the softness away. And then I saw the back seat. The passenger side door was still ajar. The interior was shredded, long, gaping tears in the fabric like something had clawed through the upholstery. It looked raw, violent, wrong. I walked over slowly. Sienna. She looked up, pale under the station lights. Yeah. What happened to your car? She didn't speak right away, just lit a cigarette with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The lighter clicked 3 times before she got it going. I parked overnight outside my place, she said finally. No one for miles, nothing around but trees. When I came out this morning, that's what I found. No one broke in. There was no glass, she said. Nothing stolen, just claw marks and this. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out. It was a strip of film, old, curling at the edges. On it, a single blurry image, the outline of someone, something, standing outside her window, at night, in the trees, just far enough that the face was unreadable, but close enough to know it was watching. I didn't take this, she whispered. It was inside my glove compartment, wrapped in twine. My blood ran cold. Sienna's voice dropped. I think someone's been watching me from the woods, and I don't think they just started. We left the gas station just after dusk. The road toward Camp 13 was smaller than I remembered, thinner, like it had been swallowed by the forest in our absence. It had always been remote, nestled somewhere between state parkland and disputed property lines. Officially, the area was marked as unsafe terrain due to landslides back in 2009. Unofficially, it had just vanished from maps, like someone wanted it forgotten. Sienna drove while I stared out the window, watching pine blur into pine. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, sacred even. We were 2 people who'd survived something no one else believed happened. Every now and then, she reached for the radio dial, then stopped. Her hand would hover, then lower, as if remembering sound wasn't safe anymore. You ever talk to anyone from the camp? I asked eventually. Sienna shook her head. Not since the interviews. After that, I just stopped checking. I didn't want to know who didn't make it. I nodded. Same. A branch snapped in the woods somewhere to our right. Not close, but loud. Too loud for something small. Neither of us commented on it. About 30 minutes in, the GPS started to freak out. The voice said we were arriving at our destination, then immediately recalculated and turned us in a loop. No signal, no internet, just static white bars and a red exclamation mark. That's when we saw the road. A dirt path just wide enough for a car, curled out of the trees. No signs, no mile marker, no recent tire tracks. And yet, I remembered it. Every bump, every pothole, every bend in the trees. We took it. The forest got thicker the deeper we went. Trees grew at impossible angles, some leaning so far inward they formed a ceiling of branches. It felt like we were driving into a throat. Green walls closing in, shadow deepening, headlights swallowed long before they reached the underbrush. Then the smell hit, charred wood and wet pine, the scent of the summer that ruined us. Sienna whispered, "We shouldn't be here." I didn't respond, because she was right, but I wasn't turning back either. And then, there it was, Camp 13. It should have been gone. We watched the news after it all went public. They said it was condemned, that demolition crews were clearing the cabins. There was even a report about soil contamination. Mercury runoff, they said. Dangerous to linger. Closed indefinitely. But it was still here. The gate creaked as we pulled through. The camp sign, wooden, carved, freshly painted, still stood tall. "Welcome back, campers." The cabins were upright. No broken roofs, no scorch marks, windows intact. Worse than decay was preservation. Sienna parked near the mess hall. Neither of us moved at first. I counted the cabins from the car window. Ours was still there. Cabin 6, nestled between the counselor's hut and the fire pit. Sienna opened her door. "Do you hear that?" she asked. I strained my ears. Nothing. Exactly nothing. No birds, no wind, no bugs, just the faint mechanical tick of my car's cooling engine. We grabbed our bags and walked toward the cabins. Every step felt wrong, like the earth here didn't want us on it. Inside cabin 6, the air was stale but dry. Our bunks were still made. The mattresses hadn't rotted. There was even a stack of board games in the corner. Dusty Monopoly, incomplete Uno deck, and that one jigsaw puzzle of a smiling cartoon moose. The lanterns on the wall flickered to life when Sienna tried one, and then we noticed the clocks. One above the door, one on the counselor's desk, one on each bunk's wall plate. Every single one read 3:17 a.m. Frozen, not blinking, not ticking, just stuck. That was the time we'd run, that summer night. That was the time the screaming started. Sienna knelt beside the bunk we once shared. Her hands trembled as she pulled open the old footlocker beneath it. Inside was a single item, a photograph. She held it up, but her eyes didn't move. They locked on one spot, bottom right corner, where someone had scratched through the glossy surface so violently the paper had torn. Not scribbled out, destroyed. She handed it to me. It was a group photo from our last day at camp. Dozens of faces, bright, sunlit, smiling. And there I was, or where I should have been. My body was there partially, my shoes, my arm around Sienna's shoulder, but my face, my name, had been obliterated. Underneath it, written in that same red ink, "We didn't forget you." I dropped the photo. Sienna didn't move. Her voice was quiet. "Why is this still here?" I didn't have an answer. but I was starting to feel like coming back had never been a choice. We didn't unpack. Not really. We dropped our bags on the bunks like we were guests in someone else's house. Guests who didn't plan to stay long. Sienna sat on the edge of her mattress, hands tucked beneath her thighs like she was bracing for a tremor. I leaned against the wall, the weight of the photo still burning in my pocket. Neither of us brought it up again. We didn't have to. "We should build a fire," she said eventually. I nodded. "We'll freeze without it." We stepped outside, collected dry wood from beneath the mess hall awning, anything not soaked through by the thick northern mist clinging to the trees. The fire pit hadn't rusted. In fact, it looked freshly scrubbed. Even the stones were stacked tight, no moss or soot. Someone had cleaned it, someone who had time. The fire hissed to life just as the sun dropped behind the trees. The night came fast out here, too fast. No stars, no moon, only smoke curling upward into a black sky like the world had been turned upside down, and the fire was burning into a void. Sienna tossed another log on the flames, then stared into them like she was watching something crawl out. "I dream about the lake sometimes," she said, voice low. Not how it looked, but how it felt. That pressure in the air, that scream in my chest I never let out. I didn't respond. She turned to me. "Do you remember him?" I didn't have to ask who. "Yeah," I said. "Every summer, every time it gets quiet." She nodded slowly. "I remember thinking he'd scream louder, you know? I remember looking away. I remember counting the seconds and not looking back." My throat tightened. She blinked hard, staring into the flames. "I think about what he'd look like now, if he made it out. If we hadn't..." I stopped her with a look. "Don't." Because we both knew he hadn't made it out, and we both knew that we had. Later, we took a walk. There was something about the cabin walls, like they were pushing inward, like the air inside was heavier than it should be. Outside, at least we had the fire. The stars never came, but the forest let us breathe. We followed the path to the lake. It hadn't changed. The water was still as glass, black as oil. Not a ripple, not a single insect on the surface. Even our reflections looked wrong, slightly stretched, slightly older than we felt. Then we saw the lantern across the water on the opposite bank, floating midair just above the dock. A faint pale glow, flickering, bobbing gently like it was being held, but too far for a person to be visible. Sienna stepped closer. "I think that's where he went under," she whispered. I nodded. My stomach churned. "I've never told anyone this," she said, "but that night I saw something in the water, just for a second. Something pull him down. It wasn't the current. It had fingers." I stared at her. "Why didn't you say anything?" She looked at me, her eyes glassy. "Because it was my idea to go to the lake. Because I dared him to swim to the middle. Because we left him there." We walked back in silence. When we reached the cabin, the fire had nearly gone out. But that wasn't what made us stop. Someone had been inside. One of the sleeping bags, Sienna's, was unzipped and spread open, as though someone had crawled in or out. I stepped forward slowly. My skin went cold. There was something carved into the interior wall above the bunk. Fresh, deep. You came back late. Sienna clamped a hand over her mouth. I backed away and grabbed the emergency radio we'd brought, just in case. I turned the dial. For a long moment, there was only static. Then, between the white noise, came a voice. Faint, metallic, whispering. It said our names, slowly, lovingly. Then came 4 more words. Roll call begins at dawn. We didn't speak after that, just lay in our bunks, awake, listening. Somewhere beyond the trees, the forest stirred, and then, very softly, from the edge of the dark, a child's voice began to sing the old campfire song, the one we used to scream for fun, back when ghosts were just stories to scare the younger kids. But the voice wasn't right. It was out of tune, off tempo. The lyrics were wrong, just enough to sound intentional. Like whoever was singing had heard it once a long time ago and remembered it too well. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.